Story time about how I was ghosted at my own wedding. When I was 17, I started dating my ex-fiance. We met through mutual friends at my senior ball. Our personalities instantly clicked and we started dating shortly after. We ended up going to the same community college and transferring to the same university. Shortly after our 5-year anniversary, he proposed to me in Hawaii during a spring break vacation. I was ecstatic and instantly started planning everything. During this time, everything seemed to be going smoothly. I noticed he was working a lot of overtime and we only saw each other on his days off, but I didn't mind because I was busy with my job and planning our wedding. My parents passed away when I was young, so the only close family that was attending our wedding was my brother and sister. My brother was going to give me away, my sister was my maid of honor. The rest of our guests were his family and our friends. People started arriving and everything seemed to be going smoothly. However, an hour before the ceremony, I was told that he couldn't be found anywhere. Obviously, this worried me and everyone started frantically looking for him. I thought to myself that he'd possibly been in an accident or something grave had happened. When I tried calling him, the calls wouldn't go through and the number wasn't in use anymore. I checked his social media pages and all of them were gone. My brother went to our apartment to check for him and when he called me, I felt like my whole world fell apart. He told me that our apartment had been cleaned out of all of his things. It's like he completely vanished. All that he left was a note saying, "I can't do this, I'm sorry." I had to tell everyone that the wedding was off. I was broken and had no idea why it happened. I spent the next couple years healing and working on myself, then meeting someone amazing who helped me overcome what had happened. I never thought I was going to hear from my ex again until one day I got a call from an unsaved number. Part 2 of how I was stood up at my own wedding. When I answered the call, my heart sank to my stomach hearing my ex-fiance's voice. All the pent-up anger I had from what he did to me came boiling to the surface. He begged me to let me explain why he did what he did. I told him that I need some time to think on it. After about a week, I decided that I needed closure and met up with him at a park. It was awkward seeing him again and he looked different. He explained he'd been in the closet for most of his life and always rejected the urges. That was until he met a coworker that he fell in love with. It turns out he had started cheating on me with this coworker shortly after he proposed. This explains why we almost never saw each other except his days off. It wasn't just overtime. As the wedding got closer, his coworker told him that he needs to end things with me if he wants to be with him. The night before our wedding, they met up and he was given an ultimatum. He either got married to me and they never speak again, or he left me and they could be together. He said he was torn but ultimately chose to leave me. However, he couldn't face me, our friends, or his family, so he ran. 3 months after this, they broke up and he came out to his family. He said he wanted to reach out to me numerous times but was scared and couldn't bring himself to face me until now. A lot was said after this, but ultimately, I got the closure that I needed and we parted ways. He asked if we could possibly be friends in the future, but I told him that I didn't want him in my life. Story time about how my sister and I got stranded in the middle of a lake. My dad was really sick from short bowel syndrome and was going to be in the hospital for a long time. One summer, he was having surgery, so my sister and I went to stay with our grandparents. They lived near a lake and we always go tubing with my grandpa. One morning, he asked my sister and I if we wanted to go on the boat. On the way there, he warned us that the currents would be a lot stronger than what we were used to, but my sister and I would swim all the time, so we weren't too worried. When we got there, we would always go to the beach area first to swim, and then we would go to the middle of the lake to tube and swim in the deeper parts. The currents ended up being stronger than what we thought, but it wasn't really concerning, so we put the anchor down in the middle of the lake and started having a great time. This is when my grandpa decided to jump into the water too. However, instead of jumping off at the front of the boat like my sister and I were doing, he jumped off at the back and the current started to pull him away. My sister immediately jumped into the water with a rope to try and get him, but he had already drifted away. I tried to flag down other boats for help, but it took about 15 to 20 minutes before anyone came by. Thankfully, this man and his son came to our rescue. The son got on our boat to try and get us back to the docks while his dad looked for our grandpa. Later, we found out that our grandpa had died from a heart attack in the water and there was nothing we could have done. Our grandma couldn't have us around afterwards since she was going through the loss of our grandpa. We ended up staying with some random family members that we didn't even know. It was all unexpected and our dad was the most broken up about it since he couldn't attend the funeral. It took a long time for my grandma to heal, but the funeral was beautiful and we were really thankful to those kind people who helped us on the lake that day. I've been dating my boyfriend for a year. We matched on Tinder originally and he sparked up a conversation with me about my career field, which is in the funeral business. I'm a licensed cosmetologist who prepares deceased people for their funerals. It might sound weird to some, but I enjoy my job and it brings me joy to see the family's reactions to my work. It also doesn't bother me to do makeup on deceased people. My boyfriend's always been supportive and interested in my career. I always thought he was just a sweet and supportive person. We would always talk about my job and my clients. He always asked me specific questions about how people look and what it's like when I'm touching them or doing work on them. I was always happy to answer his questions and talk about my work with him because it was nice to have someone who was genuinely interested. I also have a portfolio with before and after pictures of work I've done on my deceased clients with their family's permission, of course. My boyfriend asked to see these pictures, but I never showed him or anyone else besides potential employers because I felt that 1, it was disrespectful to the memory of the person and their family, and 2, because it was unprofessional to do so. Originally, my boyfriend respected me when I told him my reasoning as to why I wouldn't show him, but over time he's gotten more and more agitated about it. It slowly came up more often and it was starting to make me question why he gets so upset over this. However, a month ago, he stopped bringing it up and asking about it. One day, when he was sleeping and his phone was out, I had the craziest gut feeling to go through it. I had never done it before, but I couldn't shake this feeling. I finally gave in and checked his photo album. I was shocked to find that he had gone through my portfolio and snapped pictures of it. I woke him up in anger and confronted him. This is when he broke down and admitted that he was into necrophilia. Things only went downhill from here. Part 2, I found out my boyfriend is into necrophilia. When my boyfriend broke down and admitted it, I was shocked. Everything from our first conversation up until finding the pictures on his phone all made sense in a different light. He explained that me being a mortuary cosmetologist is what drew him to me in the first place. All the conversations we had about my job and experiences further fueled his fantasies and made it all more realistic. He also enjoyed that I didn't mind being around deceased people. He admitted that he thought eventually he might be able to get me to roleplay in the bedroom with him and give him a realistic taste of what it would really be like. As he said all of this, I could see and feel the excitement slowly radiating off of him. I'm not one to shame people for what they're into, but this just creeped me out. I think he could see the terror on my face because he quickly tried to change the topic. However, it was too late. Knowing all of this knowledge now, I couldn't turn a blind eye and it wasn't something that I could accept. I grabbed his phone and wiped the pictures. Then I told him that I needed the next few days to myself. He gathered his things and left. However, he spent the next few days blowing up my phone with apologies. They started out sincere at first, but when I didn't reply, they got more aggressive. He tried to shame me for not being an open-minded person and accepting of his interest. By the end of the week, I told him our relationship was over and his actions were unforgivable. He continued to pester me for a while after that, but eventually backed off when I threatened to out him to his friends and family if he didn't leave me alone. I met my girlfriend at a party one night. She seemed like a total daredevil type of chick who grabbed life by the horns. The night I met her, she jumped off of the roof of the house into the pool. This instantly caught my attention and I was immediately attracted to her. I quickly took my shot and started talking to her. We got along really well right off the bat and things started heating up quickly in no time. We would go on adventures all the time and it was great, until it wasn't. We've been together for 8 months at this point when I started questioning what was really going on. There were multiple times when we went on an adventure and I felt like she almost got me killed. At first, I thought I was being paranoid, but over time, it became more of an occurrence on her part. For example, we went hiking on a rocky and dangerous trail with a huge drop-off. If anyone fell off of the side, they'd definitely be toast. At one point, when I was making it across, she ran up and tried to push me. Thankfully, I saw her in the corner of my eye and ducked so that she'd miss, but I was shocked. She started laughing and acting like it was a huge joke. I was genuinely terrified, but I moved past it because I thought she had a dark, twisted sense of humor. There's no way she'd actually try to push me, right? Well, my theory was definitely solidified when we went hunting together. She has expertise in this area as she grew up doing it, but I've only been a few times. At one point, she literally aimed the rifle at me from afar. When I yelled at her to stop and started freaking out, she had the craziest smile I've ever seen on her face. It was almost like a switch flip. I really thought she was going to go through with it until another hunter in the area heard me yelling and came to see what was up. When she realized someone else was around, she quickly changed her aim and once again laughed it off like it was a big joke. After this, I knew I needed to get away from her and end the relationship. However, most of my things were still at her apartment and I didn't know how to go about it because at this point, I wasn't sure what she'd do. Part 2, I think my girlfriend is trying to unalive me. I borrowed her apartment key while she was at work and quickly grabbed all my things, including my laptop that I had let her use for school. When I got on it, I was shocked at what I found. There were a bunch of websites I didn't recognize, but after visiting them, I was terrified. She had frequented websites that included a lot of gore and death. From what I could tell, she was particularly interested in acts of torture and so on. She had even Googled different ways to make unaliving someone look like a complete accident. Additionally, there were also Google searches for how to fake certain emotions and empathy. Shortly after going through all of this, I got a text from her asking where I was and why I had taken all my things. I wasn't sure if I should go all in about the things I thought or if I should play it cool. I had a bad feeling that this girl was dangerous and I didn't want to just let her think that she was safe to keep doing these things. I confronted her and told her about everything I found. I also told her what I think she's been doing in our relationship. At first, she tried to defend herself and once again act like it was all a joke. However, when she realized I wasn't buying it, she got angry. That's when she started spewing threats and told me that she should have pushed me off of the cliff on our hike. After this, I started ignoring her texts, but she kept blowing me up. Her texts were getting even more aggressive. I decided I'd deal with it the next day and went to bed. However, at 2 a.m. I heard banging on my apartment door. I could tell that it was her. I could hear her angered breathing behind the door and she wasn't leaving. I called the police and had her arrested for harassment. That's when I also made a police report about everything I had found and turned it over to the police. The last time I saw her was when I was granted a restraining order against her in court because she started stalking me. The judge also sentenced her to mandatory therapy after all the evidence was brought forth. Ever since then, I've moved far away and I always watch my back. I met my boyfriend 5 years ago on a dating website. We met up for drinks and hit it off instantly. When I told him I didn't want children, he said he was okay with it as he didn't see himself wanting any either. This seemed perfect because it was a deal breaker in many of my previous relationships. The first few years of our relationship was great. We traveled, moved in together, and advanced in our careers. About 6 months ago, my boyfriend told me that he's had a change of heart and wants a family. He said that with COVID and him nearing 35, he's realizing that life is short and wants to be a father. I was shocked by this, but stuck with my position. He begged me to reconsider and at least think of it because he couldn't see his life without me and wanted to have that family with me. I took time to think on it, but no matter which way I put it, it wasn't something that I saw in my life. I don't think I'm responsible enough to take care of another human being besides myself, and there are so many things I want to do in my life that I'd have to put on hold if I was to have children. When I told my boyfriend my decision, I was expecting us to break up. However, he told me that he'd rather have me than have a family because he couldn't see himself with anyone else. He was adamant about this, and I believed him. I'm not on birth control because it affects me horribly, but we always use protection. I missed my period a couple of weeks ago, but they've always been irregular, so I didn't think anything of it. However, I also started having early pregnancy symptoms and decided to take a pregnancy test. It came back positive and I was shocked. I told my boyfriend and he was ecstatic. When I told him that I didn't want to keep it, he lost it. We got into a heated argument and this is when he slipped up about tampering with the rubber.